Diamondbacks are world champions.
Down is the motion man. Little flip to Fitzgerald. He scores! And the Cardinals win an amazing game.
Mikhail Bucker with a chance. He walks in. He scores! Mikhail Bucker for the second straight game is the hero.
Sporty Nation, hello. Welcome to episode number 2 of season number 2. It is Richie and it is Corey hanging out here doing a little Friday night, late night sporty edition tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun for the next half an hour or so. Coming up tonight, Corey, we have, of course, we're going to talk a little bit of Coyotes. We're going to have one of our really great friends now with the Athletic, Silverman's going to join us to talk Coyotes. And then coming up later, we're going to talk some ASU football. We're going to describe whether or not we are on the Herm train or not. So we have a lot to talk about tonight, don't we?
We have quite a bit to talk about. I would like you to put that whiskey somewhere you are not going to knock it over, considering the fact that you knocked over your last drink.
No, there is a cap on here this time.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So
Richie would like to give a shout out to Santan.
Yes.
So he's drinking over there.
It is delicious. It's called Sacred's Dave. It's one of my favorite local whiskeys. I actually found it for the first time tonight, so I'm very happy that I finally found it.
I can smell it all the way over here.
Yes. You don't like whiskey, so I'm sorry, but...
Yeah, and I'm on antibiotics right now. I think that's technically a giant no-no.
Oh. Whoops. Sorry.
Oh, well, no, I'm not drinking any alcohol.
Oh, okay.
So we're okay.
I was going to say, you can't smell whiskey? That doesn't seem right.
No, I can't. I just don't think I can drink alcohol.
Okay, good. So none for you. I'll have this little bit for now, and it'll get me going by the end of the show.
That works. I'm over here drinking an energy drink.
So let's see. Let's get into We're waiting on Kat Silverman to call us. She's gonna be here with us momentarily. But before then, let's go ahead and get into some Coyotes a little bit. Just your initial thoughts on Oliver Ekman-Larsson being named captain yesterday on Thursday. Of course, remember after last season, there was no captain in the interim between Shane Doan, and now OEL is your newest Arizona Coyotes captain.
I honestly think that it was kind of a long time coming. I mean, everyone has kind of wanted him to be the captain for a while. I always thought that Stepan had more of the leadership, and he was going to be able to be that strong, kind of calm mind amongst the team. But, I mean, it makes sense in the fact of the team itself. He has been with the team for so long. He has grown up here immensely from where he was in the beginning, I believe. As a player and as a person, I think he has just grown so much, and he's grown under Shane Doan. And I think that this is eventually where it was supposed to go anyways. And so I think this is a good decision on their part. And I think it was a lot of what fans have been wanting for so long. So they finally got to see that. And I just think that it was kind of obvious with their little PR push that they were doing with him in the beginning.
Right.
But he has learned so much more like this past year, which is interesting to me because I mean, like, I feel like he learned under Shane, but I feel like he also kind of took it for granted.
Right.
And then the year without him, he would kind of realize that, oh, I've got to step it up type of situation. And I feel like he is a completely different person now,
right,
and that he may actually be able to be that leader in the locker room that they need.
Yeah, so you remember last year, I think we talked about this, and the idea that they didn't have a captain at all. And at the end of last year, I think we all knew that it was going to be Oliver Ekman-Larsson that was going to get that C. But, of course, I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again today, which is I think it should have been Derek Stepan that should have gotten the captain's
I agree.
letter. Because if you go back to last season, who was the guy that was always in the locker room every game, good and bad, that they were talking to? It wasn't Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That was Derek Stepan. He was the guy, to me, that showed the most leadership qualities out of the entire Coyotes roster. And I think that's why would rather have had Derek Stepan as the captain. But when you sign a guy to a brand new 6-year deal, multi-millions of dollars, you kind of have to give him the captaincy.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to the fact, like, if it was me and you are on the exact same page about this. Like, I think leadership-wise and maturity-wise, we think, and with the ability with playoffs and knowledge of that and being in the NHL and on a lot of different levels. I think we think that Stepan is that person, but they've been grooming OEL for this for so long that it was bound to happen. So, I mean, at this point, there's many times that I have not had any confidence in OEL to be the next captain of this team. I mean, you look back on some of the people who were past captains, and that is a hierarchy that you really have to strive for to live up to that potential. So, I mean, it was kind of, it wasn't shocking to me at all, but at the same time, it was kind of like, I almost wanted them to just do the A's again this year.
Yeah.
But clearly it didn't do very well in the locker room last year. So you have to understand the fact that there was no sense of pure leadership.
Right.
And so they were lost in that first 2/3 of the season.
Right.
So they need this leadership, something fierce.
Right.
So, I mean, at this point, I'm really hoping. It's more that I am hoping, and I like the way that they have groomed him. And this is the best that he has been since he has been on this team.
All right. Hey, we're back, Sporty Nation. Sorry about that. We had to get our headphones and get reset. That's what happens when you're live for the first time or second time only. If you notice, both of us have
headsets on now, so
sexy looking headsets, so we can.
I know a headset has never looked so good. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. So, anyway, we have Kat on the line now, so let's bring her on. Kat Silverman is on live now with was on Sporty and Corey and Richie Swab. Sorry about that. We completely forgot our headphones, so when we brought you on, we almost couldn't hear you, but now we can hear you just fine.
No, that's good. Yeah, that hurts a little bit. Okay. She's a little hurt that you guys couldn't hear us, but she'll be talking, by the way. We do have commentary with Izzy, Sporty with Corey, Richie, and Izzy.
Yes, we can hear her in the background. We could have her as our third co-host.
I know.
She's ready to tell you guys stuff. She was at practice a couple days ago. She was at rookie camp, so she's got some thoughts on the rookies. Ready for the season.
I'm just cool just letting her talk for the next 20 minutes. But so Corey and I, before we got you on, we were talking about Oliver Ekman-Larsson and his new captaincy. Corey and I kind of agreed that maybe Derek Stepan deserved the captaincy more so than Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Do you think that's the case, or do you think Oliver Ekman-Larsson was the right choice?
I actually kind of think that OEL was the right choice. I think that teams have their public, like their official captain, and then usually teams have another captain that's, their locker room captain. Like if you look at the Vancouver Canucks and the Florida Panthers during Roberto Luongo's career, he's a goaltender. He's not allowed to be the captain, even though Vancouver tried. Give me 1 second. She's really loud today. But yeah, they tried to make him the captain. It's obviously not allowed in the NHL. He's very clearly the guy that everyone goes to, that they look to. He's the one that holds the locker room together, both currently in Florida and previously in Vancouver. But he's not the face of all the interviews, the face of all of the philanthropy, the face of the advertising. That was the Sedins. And that's kind of what I see here in Arizona. Derek Stepan is their locker room guy. But they have OEL for charities. They have him for team events, for press conferences. He's consistent. He's going to be here probably a little bit longer than Derek Stepan. He's their superstar. It's just a little bit of a difference in who you have wearing the C versus who you have maybe in the locker room joking around with the younger guys. And that's not a knock on Stepan not being a professional captain or whatever. I think he would have been just fine, but it's more in terms of what I think the team is looking for. And I think that's absolutely what OEL has.
So we had put out a poll a couple days ago that was about the top 4 normal teams here in the state. I mean, we do have to give credit to Phoenix Rising because they were all of them are coming out in force about it. But the one team that everyone seemed to have the most faith in was the Coyotes. Do you see anything different with this team, or do you see them being similar to the team that's, 1/3 part of the end of the season that would give all of the fans faith in this team this year?
I think that if they finish anywhere close to where they did last year, it will be, I think, a shock to everyone involved. They have to take a step forward because so much of where they finished last year was that early season bad luck. It didn't have to do with skill. They jettisoned some of their maybe less effective players, I guess is the nicest word for it. They got rid of Zach Ronaldo over the summer. He was a good guy for exemplifying effort, but not necessarily their most talented player. They got rid of Luke Shen, same thing, a guy who put in the effort but maybe wasn't an NHL caliber defenseman. Brought in some more talent. Michael Grabner is insanely fast. He's a good goal scorer. Alex Galchenyuk, you can't say enough good things about how much he adds in terms of offensive value. So on paper, they took a step forward. And so even with bad luck, they would improve. And, I mean, how many times can a team have that level of bad luck? Knock on wood. So I think you may only see them challenging for the wild card spot, but they could very easily be a playoff team, I think. And if not a playoff team, they could be where they were 5 years ago. The 2013-14 season when they were 2 points out of the playoffs. It was down to the wire with them in Dallas. So I think that's where we're going to be. I don't necessarily think they're going to be the third best team in the league, but I think they'll be challenging. So.
Yeah, I think I am in a little bit of agreement with you, which is it's going to be close. I don't think this team is good enough to make the playoffs just yet. So I just don't think they're going to get enough goal scoring. Plain simple. Galchenyuk's still a question mark. Vinny Hinostroza is interesting to me to play on the top two lines. He's going to be a wild card this year, so I don't think they're going to score enough to make the playoffs. But Antti Ranta is probably going to be the biggest key for me to this season. You wrote a terrific article talking to him on The Athletic, by the way, where you can find all of Kat's work, theathletic.com. Go get your subscription right now and go read her stuff. But tell us a little bit about your chat with Antti Ranta, because I thought it was fascinating how he explained his sleep schedule and how that helped him get healthier over this offseason.
That was probably the most fun chat I've had with a player in a really long time, because so much of what he said makes sense. He was talking about how he did these sleep studies with JP Power. He's the strength and conditioning coach for the Coyotes, and basically what they did was they looked at body recovery, sleep quality, sleep duration, kind of like what your Fitbit or your Apple Watch does, but on a much more advanced level. Obviously, they weren't just using a heart monitor like you would with your Fitbit or your Apple Watch. It was using more advanced technology, but it was sort of looking at how your body recovers during sleep, which it helps them know what was recovering faster and what wasn't, and how good his quality of sleep is, because you can see on those things. You can look at even just your Fitbit and say, hey, last night I woke up 15 times and I was only in REM sleep for an hour of my 6 hours of sleep. That's obviously not good. So, you can look at that, see when you're getting quality sleep, when you're not. But you can also use that to evaluate, and he and I touched on this a little bit, you can use it to evaluate your own feeling of your body. The longer you know that kind of information, the longer you have it at your disposal, the more you can say, hey, these days when it's telling me I'm this recovered, this is how I feel. So moving forward, when I feel like this is my body's level of preparedness, and this is my body's level of, this I need to stretch more because this isn't recovering as fast as it could be, or I need to be winding down more in the evenings and maybe doing more yoga instead of playing Fortnite because I'm not getting the same quality of sleep. So obviously you shouldn't use technological data like that as the be all end all, because it can't be perfect. It's not going to truly tell you your body's level of recovery and, your sleep quality. It's going to be, there's a margin of error. But it helps you at least become more familiar with your own body. And so as a goaltender, he needs to be fully ready in terms of his, especially core and lower body. That's used so much by a goaltender. So being better prepared to understand his body, throughout the season, saying, hey, this part of my body's not recovering as quickly when I'm playing 40 games, so I need to focus more on that. I need to strengthen that. I need to stretch more to sort of level it out. That, I think, can help him tremendously throughout the season, because his technique wasn't the issue last year. He was having issues with durability and conditioning, I believe. So if anything, the worst case scenario is that we get what we did last year, which was, he had a .930 save percentage, but the best case is we get that quality of play, but over 50 or 60 games, which if you even add 10 or 20 games how he played last year, they were contending for a wild card spot. So I think that's huge.
And if all of you didn't know, Kat is our goaltender extraordinaire. She knows all of it more than anyone that I have ever met in my life. She is amazing about it. So if you ever want to read anything about goaltending in the NHL or about the Coyotes this season, make sure to subscribe to The Athletic and read her articles, because they're all amazing. And going to that, Kat, as kind of a wide range, I'm not going to narrow it down to anything in particular, but I just really want to know what has been something that's been standing out to you about the goaltending in the NHL this season that you found was interesting, or where Ante will end up in the whole field, like anything that you've really kind of found this offseason that you kind of really want to point out.
So I think the most interesting thing that I think as soon as the game starts, it's going to jump to the forefront of the conversation is the new chest protectors. This upcoming season, the NHL has regulated chest arm protectors for goaltenders, and that involves their shoulder pads, their arm pads, elbows, their chest protector. It's all rolled into one for goaltenders. It's like what a baseball catcher wears, but a little bit more sturdy, because obviously they're absorbing more shots than, hopefully, baseball catchers are absorbing baseball pitches. They should be catching them. But they've regulated that a little bit more this off season, and they've been working on it for a couple years now. They've finally rolled out the prototype. This year, they're going to be being used by all of the goaltenders in the NHL. From what I've heard, they've made some significant changes to how close they fit to the body, which is going to change how much of basically the shock impact from these shots is being absorbed by the chest protector versus by your body. Obviously, the closer you're wearing it, the more that velocity is going to transfer to your body and you're going to feel it. So that's going to change for goaltenders. It's a little bit more contoured, so there aren't going to be as many areas where it sticks out a little bit. They're going to have to become more familiar with basically their own dimensions within a few inches. It's not like they were marshmallows beforehand and now they're going to look like players. They were already, wearing something that was about as contoured as it could get while still being safe. They've obviously tried to further contour it while remaining safe, but the changes are pretty big. So I think we're going to immediately notice how goaltenders are adapting to that, because they will be feeling these shots more. So as they feel the shots more, we're going to maybe see some guys become a little gun shy. They're going to not be a huge fan of being hit by, 30 to 40 pucks a night. Even guys that love blocking shots don't block that many per game every game. So we may see some of them become a little gun shy. We may see some of them adapt how they're playing a little bit. We may see them use more active hands, start to move so that their blockers end up getting things. We may see changes in defensive structure. We may even see, these goaltenders relaying this information to their defensive core and have their defenders change the way that they're playing to limit maybe shots from farther out that may be coming a little bit harder and faster. They may want closer shots that are going to be more chipped, that maybe aren't as fast but look a little bit more accurate. I'm not sure how it's going to go, because I know at least one journalist said that Malcolm Subban of the Vegas Golden Knights hadn't gotten his new equipment as of, I think it was last week. So we still don't know exactly how it's going to affect things, because some guys haven't used it yet. But I think that's something that, more than anything else, we're really going to see some changes, and we're going to hear some comments, and we're going to see some adaptations.
There you go. Great insight on goaltending on the Arizona Coyotes from the person that you're going to be able to read her all season long on theathletic.com. Go get your subscription. The Athletic Arizona, brand new. I'm sure there's a lot of discounts you can find out there. Follow Kat on Twitter at @CatMSilverman for more terrific hockey stuff. Kat, we know you got to get back to your lovely daughter, so please send Corey and I's love to little Miss Izzy.
Absolutely. She misses you guys.
Thanks, Kat. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
There you go. There's Kat Silverman. We can take off our headsets now. There you go.
We are back, y'all.
Yes. So that was a very, very interesting conversation, and we'll put a cap on this Coyotes conversation so we can get to Corey's Corner in a moment. But about the goaltending stuff that it doesn't really get covered. I find that completely fascinating what she said about Ronta and about the chest protectors. But let's put a cap on. Let's make some Coyotes predictions. You heard mine. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think, like I said, they're going to struggle to score goals, and that's why they're going to find themselves on the outside looking in. Yes or no? Do the Coyotes make the playoffs?
No. And mostly because I think the team has improved, but I don't think it's just there yet. It's one of those situations where they've made some fine-tuning, but they haven't completely fixed all of the problems that they have. So I don't think they will.
I agree. Are you ready for Corey's Corner?
Yes.
Let's take a jaunt into Corey's Corner.
Oh, I missed that little.
Yes.
Our little tagline there flowing into it. So my Corey's Corner is going to be relatively short today. I just wanted to give a massive shout out to Phoenix Rising fans because they came out in full force. I had put out a poll on our Twitter that had said, which team do you have the most faith in? Because I felt like, and you guys heard this in my last corner, that a lot of this state in general has been very pessimistic about our team. So I was kind of curious which team that the fan base had the most faith in. And I did the large four. Obviously, there is many other teams in this state that are either minor league teams or are, as in this situation, a soccer team, which a lot of people I don't think about. Richie and I went to, Richie goes to them actually quite a bit, but I went to my first match ever a couple weeks ago, and I had so much fun. It was amazing to be at, and their fan base is so incredibly loyal and so incredibly fun to watch that I was so impressed by them in general. And so, if there was an exception to my corner, it was probably the fact of all the Phoenix Rising fans, because they are constantly so supportive. They love the ownership, which is so nice to hear because, we have so many teams that have not the best ownership around, Suns. But, it is really nice to hear fans that are behind an ownership team and that they are willing to, in full force, come and write in all their votes for Phoenix Rising. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all you Phoenix Rising fans. You guys are next level, and I thought it was so impressive. And I'm really starting to enjoy the whole soccer atmosphere now because they've kind of gotten me into it. And so I'm really excited to see where all that goes.
Yeah, Phoenix Rising, by the way, they're going to make it to the playoffs, and they're actually in contention right now. If they finish the season strong enough, they have 2 home games left the rest of the season, if I'm not mistaken. If you had a chance to make it out there yet, you got to get yourself out there to a game. October 13th is going to be Didier Drogba's last regular season home game. For those of you that don't know, Didier is one of the biggest names in international soccer. So you got to go see him play his last regular season game before they begin the playoffs. Again, they're contending for that top spot in their conference in the USL, and they are a fun team to watch. I've met a lot of their players. I've met their GM. They're all terrific. I can't wait to watch them the rest of the season because they are right now, unfortunately, or fortunately enough, the best team in the state as far as sports go. Another team, though, that has been really good lately, which we want to talk about, is both Corey and I's Arizona State Sun Devil football team. What a surprise they have been. Holy smokes. Now, I don't remember. We did have a show when Herm Edwards was hired, correct? And did we not just lay into...
Oh, we just laid into him. We assumed it was going to be a shit show. On this show, we will admit when we are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we were wrong, y'all. We were really wrong. Like, that was Michigan against Michigan State. That was such a good performance from that team. It was so, so good. We kept on complimenting the entire time how good their O-line looked.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Vikings fan, I don't get to see that very often. So I was like, what the hell? A nice O-line. I quite like this. It made me happy. So that was very impressive to watch. And, it's always impressive to watch Nikhil, though. Like, I mean, he's supposed to go as the number one wide receiver in the 2019 draft.
I was surprised that Todd McShay ranked him as his number one overall wide receiver for next year's draft.
Yeah, that's what I was like, this is kind of impressive. And I mean, he was the one. It was funny, too, because throughout the entire game, I am complaining about the fact that Manny Wilkins could not float a pass in to save his life. Every single throw he was making was a complete bullet. I mean, they were on target most of the time. When they were off, it's because he overthrew. Yeah. But he has a hard time getting to receivers without separation. If there's really good coverage on the receivers, he can't float those passes in. He can't make those pretty, like, I guess, Brady. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah, the high level, like, NFL throws you would see from, like, a Peyton Manning.
They're floaters that the receiver that's a good receiver can make that separation just enough to get that ball without it becoming an interception. And I don't think he has the confidence in it either.
Right.
So he wasn't making a lot of those throws. He was overthrowing them, and the receivers didn't have I was complaining, like, really bad about it because we were all to dinner together watching it. And I was really badly complaining about it, and he threw a perfect floater pass to Nikhil, and he caught that.
And it was the only one that mattered, too.
And it was gorgeous. And, like, Nikhil, I mean, just beautifully caught that catch. And I was so impressed with all of it. And, I mean, at the very end, the best part of it all is that Richie couldn't even sit down. He is standing up in this restaurant, and our friend Scotty over there, who's sitting over there, he starts yelling at Richie, what are you doing? You can't be running around in a restaurant. You got to sit down. He was hyped, everybody. He was so hyped. It was so good to see.
Yeah, it was an exciting win. By the way, did you hear this stat? This stat is incredible. At Sun Devil Stadium, ASU is 10-0 against Big Ten teams.
That is awesome.
Because
and slightly ironic because of the Big Ten.
Yes,
yeah.
and the idea behind that is because of the heat. And Herm Edwards talked about that after the game too, where he was saying Michigan State looked tired. You remember at the end of the first half when we thought the first half was over and they took a timeout? Mm-hmm. Herm Edwards mentioned that after the game and said that was key because he knew Michigan State was tired, and in the second half that was pretty freaking apparent. But here's it. So I think there's almost too much credit, though, going to Herm Edwards. Herm Edwards has been very good. He's impressed just about everybody. His players are all in. They're all on the Herm train. He's done a very good job with this team right now. But I think a lot of the credit, if not most of the credit, has to go to Danny Gonzalez, the defensive coordinator. I think we talked a little bit about this when we were watching the game last week. This Arizona State defense under Danny Gonzalez, who came over from San Diego State, who ASU is playing on Saturday night, as we're live right now on a Friday, so they're playing them tomorrow. But Danny Gonzalez has this defense looking like something we haven't seen in years.
Oh, they know how to tackle, and that's the thing I haven't seen in I don't know how long. That is one of my biggest complaints, whether it is college or NFL. Like, the fact that people don't know how to wrap someone up and tackle them drives me insane. And that is one of the biggest things. That's one of the, I know it seems small, but that's a massive change when you make sure that your team is disciplined enough to do that.
Right.
And that is definitely one of the things that I saw as a big difference. And I mean, you are completely right. It's kind of like what I had said in my Corey's Corner last week, is the fact that soon as something good happens, everyone wants to jump on. I used the boat last time, but they want to jump on the train.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere on my Twitter. I mean, obviously, I've got a fair amount of ASU people on my Twitter. because of us being alumni and such.
Right.
But in the end, everyone was, I mean, they even put, I think, Herm's face on a train or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it went to completely different levels. And so I do think we do overreact a little bit, and I had said that before last week. So without repeating myself, basically, I do think that it might be a little bit too much credit that we're giving him. But I do think that he is enabling a lot of change, and he's enabling a lot of hype around this organization, and the fact that it all comes down to boosters.
Yeah.
In college football, it always comes down to boosters. So if this is going to get boosters involved, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about this all week too, and I haven't brought this up to you yet. So this is going to be a little bit of a sporty surprise. Are you ready for a sporty surprise?
I don't like the way that sounds.
It,
but
well,
yes.
it still has to do with ASU football, but so now, do you remember when Dennis Erickson took over for Dirk Cutter? What happened?
No.
10-win season. ASU nearly made it to the Fiesta Bowl. They had a really great season.
Oh,
the
okay.
first year
That's
under
what you
Dennis
meant.
Erickson.
I thought there was some scandal that I missed. I was like, what scandal did I miss?
No,
Okay.
yeah, I have a point I'm getting around to here. So
it's good stuff. I thought you were going down a bad direction. Okay.
No.
We're good. Whew. I was like, what did I miss?
Do you remember what happened when Todd Graham took over for Dennis Erickson?
Oh, you're expecting me to remember what
another really good 10-win season where they contended in the Pac-12 South. Actually, they made the inaugural Pac-12 title game under Todd Graham.
That was in the Levi.
No, this was at Sun Devil Stadium, the first one.
Oh, okay. Then they made it. Okay, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So my point being is that we need to have a little bit of patience here, because the Herm, and we criticized ASU for the Todd Graham thing. We wanted him fired because he, long term, was basically only getting you 6 or 7 wins a season. That wasn't good enough. So we have to keep this in mind with Herm Edwards. This is just one season. He may win 10 games this season. I don't think he will win 10 games. I think the Pac-12 South is in a down year this year. So I think ASU is going to be able to contend in the Pac-12 South. But with this Herm Edwards hire, remember, we need to look long term. So yes, it's going to be, right now it's looking to be a pretty good season, the first season of Herm Edwards, but it's going to be how can he recruit now going forward for the next 4 or 5 seasons, and can he take those recruits and develop them into continued success to where they're contending on a consistent basis for Rose Bowls, which is the entire reason we wanted Todd Graham fired in the first place, because 6 and 7 win seasons, and we got crushed at this at the time, saying we don't want to be mediocre anymore. So that's my only caution with Herm Edwards is, remember, this is a long-term plan.
And we were also kind of tired of the fact that every single year it was going into it saying that we were going to be the best, we're going to win championships. And, like, I think everyone just kind of got tired of him offering up so many things and then never actually following through on them. And I think that was one of the things, too, that we were constantly getting frustrated with, is the fact that it was never followed through. It's like making promises and never actually doing what you would promise someone.
Right.
And that is not a way to make friends, and that is not a way to run a football team. So, I mean, that was one of my biggest problems I had with him, other than the fact that they were constantly mediocre, which was always not very fun either. But, I mean, I agree with you. It is a long-term. You're constantly playing for the long game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's actually kind of sounds like one of his quotes, because, I mean, he's had how many quotes now that everyone keeps on throwing around? You play the game to win, get on the Herm train. You know, everyone's been loving the crap out of him. But, I mean, there is something to say for all the things that we were worried about before. He has been out of this for a while, and he's doing well now. Let's see if he keeps it up. I mean, I don't mean to be, worried or pessimistic or any of that stuff, but it was also, like you had mentioned, a game that had been played at home. And if you don't live here, you don't realize how damn hot it is all the time. And that is not something you train in. It's the same thing as if a team that lives here goes up to a high altitude. That's, it's a complete handicap that they've had from the very beginning of the game. And so I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. and that it's going to be really interesting to see how the season goes. And I mean, me and you during the game, we had picked out a few times when the offense was having problems and how many problems that we thought the offense had in general.
Right.
Because we thought the defense was grade A. The defense looked amazing. The O-line looked great, but the actual offense was not looking very good, in the fact that I think there was only like what was the rushing in the beginning? It was very low.
Yeah, ASU only, I believe, had somewhere near around 50 rushing yards the entire game with Eno Benjamin, which is definitely a problem. So I'm glad you pointed that out, especially moving forward in the Pac-12 season when San Diego State's coming up. Washington is going to be the big matchup of the season on the road here, facing a top 10 team coming up in a couple of weeks too.
Yeah, so that was one of the problems that we were having with it, is they're constantly passing. They're not even looking to the rush most of the time. And the fact that I had already mentioned of Manny's passing, I see some problems with him as a quarterback. Right. So, and I don't think when there's really good coverage on the receivers, that the receivers are able to catch his passes. Right. So I think there are some problems that need to be fixed, and I think if they do fix them as we go along, this could be a good long-term team. But you have to also think of the fact that after the season, is like, because I think this is Nikhil's last season, right? This is
Nikhil's last season. It's also Manny Wilkins' last season too.
So you will have major shifts.
Yeah.
Like that is the number one, number two of your team right now. And that's going to be gone. So it's whether he can also rebuild after this as well.
Exactly. So there you go. Let us know what you think of ASU Sun Devils. Are you on the train or not? I think Corey and I both are. We are excited for what's to come the rest of the Pac-12 season as we get to the Pac-12 schedule in just 2 weeks. But now it is time for my Dick of the Week. I actually did not plan a Dick of the Week this week, to be completely honest. So I'm kind of going to fly by the seat of my pants on this one, but I think I know where I'm going to go with it. And he's been a previous Dick of the Week before. If you saw the Twitter at all this week, I'm assuming you've seen the Twitter all week, you probably saw a video that the Ottawa Senators put out this week on Twitter, because of course it is Twitter.
I'd like to say I like how you call it the Twitter. It's so much more official than just Twitter.
Yes. So the Ottawa Senators put out a tweet this week, and it was a 5-minute video where Mark Borowiecki, I probably just completely screwed over his name, was talking to the owner of the Ottawa Senators, Eugene Melnyk, and it was what I like to call a snorkel fest, because it was literally just Eugene Melnyk yapping for 5 minutes about how great the team is when his fan base has been basically very similar to a Suns fan base that wants to fire Robert Sarver. The Ottawa Senators fan base wants to fire Eugene Melnyk because of how negligent he has been to that franchise. And luckily, thank goodness, Erik Karlsson is out of that Ottawa mess, and he's playing now for what I like to call a super team in the San Jose Sharks. I'm looking forward to seeing him play alongside Joe Thornton and Brent Burns and Joe Pavelski. That's going to be a lot of fun all season. Are you mad because I'm praising the San Jose Sharks?
No, I would just like to throw in, too, that if you're going to go on camera and that you're going to try to do a good PR stunt, you should probably be wearing a current jersey. Just throwing that out there.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, he was actually wearing an old Reebok jersey instead of Adidas.
And all the current ones were behind him.
Yeah, he's the freaking owner of the franchise. He doesn't have an updated jersey.
Yeah, he can't afford one. They hand one to you for free. Literally, you go, can I wear one of those jerseys that are sitting behind me?
When he's the owner of the franchise. So Eugene Melnyk is my Dick of the Week this week. Thanks for hanging around with this Sporting Nation. I know we had some interesting issues. I know we've been having Wi-Fi issues too as well. So hopefully this has worked out for you well if you're watching us live. If not, and you're watching us on tape, thanks for hanging around. Thanks for watching us this week. Hopefully we'll be back again next week on Sporty with Corey and Richie Suave. Corey, I'll let you get the last word.
Hello, everyone. I hope you have a sporty night. I couldn't have made that any cornier.
Good night and good sports, everybody.